It would be a vast understatement to say that the new Bloodline group has been extremely shaky with WWE management over the past few weeks. For Friday Night SmackDown, and more especially for SmackDown General Manager Nick Aldis and Triple H, the Bloodline has been nothing but trouble. The problems have only become worse since Solo Sikoa assumed leadership of the faction after Roman Reigns lost the title match to Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania 40. Even before Roman Reigns left and Solo Sikoa became the new tribal chief, WWE had issues with the Bloodline. Prior to WrestleMania, Nick Aldis, Triple H, and Roman Reigns had some heated exchanges. Both executives made it plain to Reigns, who actually governs things backstage, clearly not him. But ever since Roman left the WWE following WrestleMania, the Bloodline has actually turned into an uncontrollably disastrous issue for the company. The new Bloodline has been formally sacked and released from WWE after last night's SmackDown, which is startling and groundbreaking news. The new Bloodline in WWE appears to be over, and Solo Sikoa should actually bear the brunt of the blame for the faction's demise. Last night on SmackDown, Solo Sikoa and the rest of the new Bloodline completely demolished Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes to end the show, but the Viper really took the brunt of it, in a manner reminiscent of how the Bloodline destroyed Paul Heyman only a few weeks prior. The Bloodline brutally pushed Randy Orton over the announcer's desk. Heyman has been hospitalized ever since. As most of you know, Randy Orton suffered a debilitating back injury that kept him out of the ring for almost 2 years. At one time, doctors said the damage was so bad that Randy Orton would have to give up on the sport of wrestling. Fortunately, Randy Orton recovered from that terrible back injury and made a significant comeback to the WWE in the latter part of last year. But unfortunately, Randy Orton's WWE career is once again in peril following the way SmackDown wrapped up last night. Nick Aldis, general manager of SmackDown, and Triple H, chief content officer, have made the decision to terminate Solo Sikoa and the entire new WWE Bloodline, saying enough is enough. According to one of our insider sources, the shocking new developments in this story are as follows. After Paul Heyman's devastation a few weeks ago, there were reportedly internal discussions and meetings held backstage among top WWE executives to fire or release the Bloodline from the company, as their actions against Paul Heyman were unspeakable. The Bloodline have been on very thin ice with WWE management for about 2 months now. Behind the scenes, there was a justifiable fear that Paul Heyman might not have survived the brutal attack by the new Bloodline in the hospital. After Paul Heyman's demise, we've been informed that several executives supported the idea of simply firing Solo Sikoa and the rest of the Bloodline, but Triple H had the last say in the matter. Hunter ultimately made the decision to provide the Bloodline one final opportunity. After the Bloodline members destroyed Paul Heyman, Triple H decided to fine each member of the group a significant sum of money, roughly $100,000, but an extended suspension was discussed behind closed doors. Hunter reportedly threatened to terminate or release the Bloodline from the firm if anything like occurred ever again. Triple H doesn't want to regularly deal with the kind of headache that comes from a strong faction in WWE breaking the rules and wreaking havoc, while also giving WWE bad press for things getting so out of control and endangering innocent non-wrestlers like Paul Heyman. Thus, once more, about a week and a half ago, Triple H met with the Bloodline backstage and made it plain that if they crossed that boundary one more time, that was it. They would lose their jobs at WWE and it would not be allowed to happen again. 2 weeks later, though, the same scenario occurred, only this time it included Randy Orton. Last night on SmackDown, the Bloodline first demolished WWE's undisputed champion Cody Rhodes. This usually enrages management since Cody is their best player, and they don't want him hurt or forced to give up the belt. However, the fact that Triple H and SmackDown general manager Nick Aldis so severely damaged Randy Orton that his WWE future is once again in utter jeopardy is what ultimately set them over the line. After Paul Heyman was destroyed last week, the Bloodline had a serious conversation with Triple H, but they came away with zero insights. Despite being warned they would lose their jobs if they carried on causing trouble on SmackDown, the Bloodline persisted in using their influence and disobeying all regulations inside the WWE. The way they treated Randy Orton last night was the same way they treated Paul Heyman. They aggressively threw him through the announcer's desk, leaving him with severe injuries. The fact that Randy Orton had just miraculously recovered from a terrible back injury is what has reportedly led Triple H, Nick Aldis, and other WWE executives to covertly fire or release Solo Sikoa and the rest of the new Bloodline after SmackDown went off the air this week. WWE management would have likely been furious with the Bloodline for what they did to Paul Heyman to really any superstar. Triple H is furious that Randy Orton is back on the injured list and that there may be further damage to his delicate back. This might mean that Randy Orton will have to retire sooner rather than later, which would be devastating. Backstage rumors now abound that Triple H met the new Bloodline in the gorilla position backstage as soon as SmackDown concluded airing this week, telling them all to pack their bags as they were going to be eliminated. It seems like Solo Sikoa simply smiled at Hunter and stated, "We'll just see about that," before leaving the stadium. This implies that Solo will figure out a means to get beyond the Bloodline's exclusive WWE releases. However, as of right now, it is said that the Bloodline have been removed from the roster and have been formally transferred to the alumni area on the backstage internal roster list or sheet. WWE is currently concentrating on Randy Orton's welfare. After the Bloodline's terrible destruction, Orton needed a lot of help from Cody Rhodes and other authorities to get backstage. Although Randy Orton is currently being evaluated by WWE physicians to determine the extent of his injuries, reports indicate that Randy's prognosis is dire and that his WWE career may be over. It's anyone's guess as to when WWE will formally declare to the world that the Bloodline has been fired or released, but we can assume that it will happen within the next few days, barring any change in circumstances behind the scenes that would cause Triple H to reconsider firing them. Thus, only time will tell how everything turns out, but as of right now, the Bloodline have been let go from WWE. If you think Triple H, Nick Aldis, and other WWE executives are making the right decision by firing or releasing Solo Sikoa and the rest of the Bloodline for what they did to Randy Orton last night, which has now put Orton's WWE career in jeopardy, please let us know in the comment section below. Or do you think the Bloodline should be free to carry on wreaking havoc on SmackDown like this without facing any consequences? Lastly, do you think that Bloodline should just be suspended or subject to more penalties instead of being fired or terminated from their position as a punishment, since it would be too harsh? Inform us. That concludes today's important wrestling news, folks. To ensure that you never miss an episode, please remember to subscribe to the channel, like and comment on posts, and enable notifications. In conclusion, please follow us at Tease Wrestling on Twitter if you haven't already. We hope to see you in the upcoming video.